Online with Amr The Internet Guy. Stream it today on your favorite podcast platforms. This podcast focuses on entrepreneurs and business owners, helping them become more successful in conducting their business on the web without being stuck with technology, getting a headache, pulling their hairs out, or buying expensive software.
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Online. Today we are discussing security, backups, passwords, hacking, not actually how to hack, but how to protect yourself against a hack, how to protect yourself and your computer and your business against things like ransomware and all the bad stuff that's out there. My guest today is going to give us lots of ideas and things that we can do in order to stay protected. Without further ado, let's get in. Hey guys, welcome to a new episode of Online Podcast. I have Dan Frederick with me here. Hey Dan.
Hi, Amr, how are you?
All good, thank you. So Dan, I want you to tell people where you are and what you do.
I'm in cold Calgary, Alberta. We're minus 25 today, so I'm not dressed up. I'm wearing my flannels.
You're inside.
Yeah, it's beautiful and sunny. It's just very cold. I run a small business called Claritech Solutions Corp. We provide IT managed services and data protection for small businesses in Calgary.
So Dan, there is an acronym that you use that I like, and I don't think you use it enough. What is it?
Oh, a friend of mine and I coined it the other day. It's the JATE-C framework. So when I was talking to him, I said, "We're just another IT company," and he goes, "You should work with that." So
JATE-C. Yeah.
So JATE-C, JAITC,
Just another IT company.
for just another IT company. So we find that that's not a bad way to start a conversation, because usually what happens is you try to differentiate yourself. And so you start at all the differentiators. And meanwhile, people that you're talking to are kind of looking at you going, are these guys just another IT company? And if you if you start with the just another IT company, then you get that out of the way. And then you can say, okay, and this is how we differentiate ourselves.
Yeah.
So the way we differentiate ourselves is more on the data protection side. So we're kind of security first, data protection first, and then from there we look at your use of your data and try to help you with your workflow and efficiencies and things like that. So we bring a lot of technical tools to the table, both from a security perspective and from a data management perspective. So we find that we can reduce the costs and keep everybody protected and get good functionality out of their systems through some of the systems we use.
I feel that many of the small business owners, and not the too small, because I don't think the too, like if you're a sole entrepreneur and maybe you're not doing any e-commerce, you probably don't see the value. But if you're like an e-commerce, if you're even like a small company that sells, I don't know, let's say you're a business coach and you have an online course, which means you have students signing up and you probably have about 500-600 students and you have the data, right? You probably don't know that you do need a specific, like even, I'm not going to go on the legal framework, like that by law, in some places you are required to show what you're doing to protect this data. But
right.
In general, you probably are aware that you need to do something about it, right?
Yeah, the biggest challenge with ransomware, traditional ransomware, was you could protect yourself by having a good backup. So you would make sure you have offline backups, offsite backups, redundant backups, so that if you ever get hit with ransomware, it could actually infect a local attached backup. But if you have an offline backup, then you can recover from that. One of the challenges these days is that ransomware is becoming more of a confidentiality privacy game that they're playing. And if they'll threaten to release your data to the public, or unless you pay the ransom. And so it's pretty hard to defend against that, except to prevent it altogether.
So let's make it easy for our listeners to figure out what we're talking about. So ransomware, usually they used to hold your data ransom in the sense of locking you out of access to your data. So in the past, they'll just lock you, they take your data hostage, and then when you pay, they restore your access. But that used to be the case. Hey, I can't access my data. So if I have it somewhere on a hard disk that is not connected to the internet, and I have my backup till yesterday, I don't really care. I'm not going to pay them because I have my
Right.
data somewhere else. So now what they do, they take it and they threaten to release it, so that they'll be releasing your customers' information online. And guess how many angry calls you're going to get if that happens,
Exactly.
and how
And
many legal issues you may get.
if you're keeping any financial data like credit card numbers or any private data,
Yeah,
you could be
you'd have
exposed.
sometimes names and addresses. If
Yeah,
you're in e-commerce and you're delivering goods, you will have addresses, right? Because you have to
absolutely.
deliver to these addresses.
Yeah,
And while the credit card data is mostly encrypted, so it doesn't actually show like the full credit card number, but once you have somebody's name, a few numbers of their credit card, their full address, you'll be surprised to how much damage you can inflict. Not you and I, but I mean like for a
right.
person who's set out to do this or to threaten to do this so they can gain financially.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's the big threat that backups don't protect you against anymore. So we have to go beyond the backups and kind of keep people protected before they do the wrong thing.
Yeah. So and I mean, as you know, I work with websites, right? And sometimes people don't understand the risks involved, not only online, but your machine, like your own computer, the one you use at home, the one you use in the office. Like you may have great security for your website and your system that you're using, whether it's WordPress or something else, but maybe something on your own machine can
Mm,
compromise your website as well. Like you click and open something you shouldn't open, and the majority of people think, oh, you know what, I've got I don't know, McAfee software like antivirus or something else. Many people use McAfee because we get it, if you show, you get it free.
right.
So Alberta and BC, mostly we use show, and Telus and show, and both of them would give you some kind of a free online
Yeah,
protection. But that on its own is not enough, and many people don't even know how to configure it correctly.
right. Yeah, and it's marginally better than Windows Defender.
Yeah, it's marginally better than having nothing at all.
Yeah, exactly.
So what does it entail? Like when the first thing is not like what you do or how you do it, but how does somebody know that this is what they need? Because most people don't know. The unconscious, I don't know what to call it. Is the unconscious ignorant, is it? Yeah,
Yeah,
the unconscious
you don't
ignorant.
know what you don't know kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and probably the biggest thing that we provide is security awareness training. So there's training that's available, and there's actually free home courses that you can provide to people that are working at home and to their kids and family members that basically teach you the tricks that the bad
Yeah.
guys are
Yeah.
using to try to get you to do the wrong thing. And these days, like between antivirus products, it's all been rebranded as endpoint protection now
Oh, God.
because it's
I,
beyond
I hate it when they
antivirus.
do that, but it's another conversation.
Again, it's part of the JC framework.
Yeah.
Um, but so the endpoint protection helps to prevent the kind of the 0-day attacks, the ones that have not been identified by the antivirus products
Yeah, they
yet.
don't have a signature yet that they can fault
Right.
to figure out that this is bad.
Right. So what they will do is they'll either sandbox it or actually prevent it from running until somebody can physically analyze that software to make sure it's not malicious.
Okay. Just to make sure for the audience, because some of my audience are not techies, or maybe the majority are not techies. What we're talking about here is like as simple as, think of it as a virus. And in order for your machine, okay, we're in COVID. I don't want to say the word virus anymore.
Everybody understands.
Do computers get COVID-19?
Yeah, that's right.
So yeah, so in order for your machine to get infected, there's an action that you should take. So bad people or bad actors would try to somehow either trick you, coerce you, do something, usually trick you into clicking on that thing that you shouldn't click or taking that action that you shouldn't in order to activate that infection on your machine. And
Exactly.
then if you have proper proactive protection that looks and examines all the files and the different things on your computer, when you do get a malicious file, if you click on it, it will just sandbox it. So instead of run it completely and getting all your machines splashed with these like virus like activities, it will run it in a sandbox, which is like a protected area of your operating system that doesn't then spread the infection. It just runs separate from everything else, and you can terminate that action. Look, I hope I made it a little bit simpler and it's not too techy.
Yeah, and one of the products that we sell actually takes it even a step further, and it won't even sandbox it. So it won't run the software, period. It stops
Yeah,
it
it stops it from running.
and gives you an alert saying that this software is unknown and that you have to contact your administrator if you want to run it right away, or you have to wait for it to be analyzed. And usually that takes a couple hours for the lab to analyze the software that you've just tried to run. And within a couple hours, it becomes whitelisted, meaning
Yeah,
it's allowed to run.
if
And
it's
then
a
from
good
then
one,
on,
right?
you can run it. Yeah.
If it
And so,
wasn't, so that's the false positive. That's if there's a
yeah, so
suspicious.
the old antivirus was always based on a blacklist. So
Yeah,
it would take signatures of every piece of software that you're running and it would compare it to its blacklist. And if what you were trying to run
yeah.
was on their list, and that
And
was
they
the
tell you
signature
this is the
file,
virus XYZ because they know it.
exactly. But so many, like the 0-day vulnerabilities are defined as they haven't been identified as a
I love the
blacklist
name.
yet.
Like, yeah,
Yeah, it
they were
is.
not known from yesterday, so it's a zero. Like we
Yeah.
we just
So
discovered
today
it
is
right
day
now.
0.
Yeah,
Yeah. And so 0-day is another one of those JC framework terms that
yeah.
everybody's using, and it's almost becoming too common. But it's
Yeah, because
basically
that
an
was
unknown.
the one that was was it a hospital? I don't know. When there was a big ransomware attack somewhere, it was called 0-day, right?
Mm,
And when you look at
yeah,
all the computer screens, everybody, like you have, I don't know, 500 employees, and all the screens are just showing the same thing.
yeah, yeah. It could be pretty scary for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, these new products they're based on a whitelist where if it's not specifically allowed, it won't run.
Then it won't run.
And so that's kind of that next level of protection.
Does
Um,
that slow down the machine's performance?
Not any more than the traditional AV.
Okay.
In fact, you could argue that it's probably quicker because on a typical PC, you might have, let's say, 10,000 programs that
Mm.
you run, and those 10,000 take up a lot less space than the 200 million out there that are
Yeah.
considered a blacklist, right? So
Ah.
you kind of have to look at less signatures if you're whitelisting, right?
Yeah, because like it's kind of you told your machine what programs it's allowed to run, so
Yeah,
you don't have to check it every time. It's there already. It knows these programs are good, versus the traditional antivirus. For every time something runs, it has to go and check its own blacklisting and figure out is
yeah,
it there or is it not there. So every time it has to ask the question, which takes a few seconds.
yeah, and some software is better at that than others. And the
Yeah,
traditional AV, they always have to update their signatures. They're always downloading signature updates, and that might happen every hour. It might happen once a day. And that causes a lot of slowdown as well while it's updating. And then there's the scanning. So if it updates its signature, now it has to scan your entire
Yeah,
drive
according to the
again.
new, yeah, to the new
Yeah,
signature.
to make sure that nothing slipped through the cracks yesterday,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, it's a challenge. The whitelisting technique is, I think it's a lot more efficient and probably a lot more secure. But beyond that, the security awareness training, the idea is to try to stop you from clicking on
Yeah.
those malicious links or running the malicious files
The
before the antivirus even
Anna
wants to get involved.
Kournikova photo.
What's that?
The Anna Kournikova photo.
Yes,
That was like the
exactly.
famous one back in the day. No, I can't remember which year. Was it 2002 or something? I don't know.
Yeah. Who can resist? Who can resist?
I think she's a bit too old now, but sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. They used to hide this in different ways. And one of them was, it looks like a picture. And then you open the picture, you get infected with a virus. And
Yeah.
it's like pretty hard to get rid of that virus without losing. The problem is not just getting rid of the virus. I mean, I don't know. If you think of it like medical terms, right? You've got someone who's sick, got like, I don't know, a tumor on the brain. If you operate on the tumor, you could take a piece of the brain with it, which makes the person not able to function. And that's pretty much the same way. Like, you could disinfect a machine, but lose all the data or some of the data, and that's not something you want. So it's not about that the fix is easy. It's about at what cost would this fix come?
Right.
And prevention is usually easier than, treatment.
Yeah, the whole back to the ransomware thing is paying the ransom is such a controversial
Yeah,
topic
I
in
know. Yeah.
itself. There's talk I just read the other day about outlawing paying a ransom. So if you get hit with ransomware, it would be illegal for you to actually pay that
Hey,
ransom.
yeah, yeah.
And they say that's the only way that you're ever going to be able to stop that. But in the meantime, you've got all of these
Yeah, but
companies that would be in severe pain.
governments, even I'm not talking about something as big as the federal government, but a city like, the city of XYZ, they get hit, they get a ransom demand, they've got some money and they can't be locked out of these machines, or they can't risk all the information because like a city has, your city taxes,
Yeah.
how much is your property worth, where is it, they have the blueprint of your property, like,
Yeah,
um,
the University of Calgary was hit a couple of years ago.
yeah.
And
Oh my God, all the students and the grades.
and the professors. And so you
Yeah,
get a lot of professors that are paranoid about their own intellectual property.
of
And
course.
so
Research. Yeah,
they're less likely to store it on a server. They're less likely to have it
of
backed up
course.
properly. And now
So
the
where do they,
universities, yeah,
if they're not going to store it on the server, where would they store it? Just take
on
it
their
with them on
local,
a, okay.
flash drive or their
But
local
that's
C
funny
drive.
because like if the same professor communicates with someone who they think they know, maybe they
Yeah.
don't, but like, someone posing as a student halfway around the world, doing research, wanting you to oversee the research, send you a file, you open the file and boom.
Hmm.
So like the problem with what most people don't know is that most IT security issues are actually user related. Like it's when we talk about hacking, yes, it does happen that somebody from completely outside of your realm or network or location can try and like crack your password or whatever. But that's like maybe 15, 20%, 80% or more is something either you or another user within your network in that building or location, an action that they took. So it's usually user related. And funnily enough, like when I studied security back in the day in the 90s, we used to laugh about it because it was mostly a social engineering sort
Hmm.
of thing, which is what people are getting now. Like, somebody calls you and tells you, hey, I'm from the government. I don't know. Sometimes it's I'm from CRA, and
Yeah.
sometimes it's your social security number has a problem or whatever. And of course, like when I get these calls, split of a second, I know it's a fraud right away. Like I don't even think about it. But it's surprising because when I speak with my colleagues and other business owners, the number of people who were duped, maybe they didn't go all the way. Like at some point, they realized the person had an accent or whatever it is. But we all do have accents here as well. Like you
Yeah,
could have a government official who does have an accent. That's normal in Canada.
exactly.
What's not normal is that they don't call you and demand whatever demands. So if you're unaware, the latest thing I read is like people are getting calls from people impersonating Amazon. They will say there's a problem with your shipment and we need more information about your address and what. I don't know, like, you know, was the end goal? Like, what would they get when they know your address and how would they use it? But it's funny. Like I don't know. The banking, for example, the online banking passwords.
Right.
Forever, banks did not like special characters. So your e-banking is less secure than your Facebook account. Like,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah, it's
crazy. It's
unreal.
like, why you guys like it is, we want two things. We want a very complex password and we want a second way of authentication so that it's not somebody gets one thing and they get access right away.
Right. I always used to joke that it doesn't matter how long and how complex your password is, a computer can read it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you've got malware on your computer, long complex passwords aren't going to help you because
Of
they're
course,
easier for
yeah.
the computer to remember than they are for you to remember.
And for as long as the computer is on, it can keep trying. It doesn't matter. It's got nothing else
Yeah.
to do. Like,
Yeah, that too. So yeah, training is a big one, and understanding where you're at risk and understanding how to recognize threats and stop it. In addition to some of these technical tools that we have.
so when you mentioned the word framework, so I'm trying to ease this into like it's a set of processes and tools that work together. And
Right.
some of the process is education. So that this
Yeah.
training will actually make people less vulnerable because they know more and they
Right.
know they can easily identify the good, bad, and the ugly.
One of the biggest challenges with the work from home model is that now it's not a company device necessarily that I'm trying to protect.
Oh yeah.
It's your home device. And home devices are notoriously unprotected.
Yes.
People
Indeed.
just don't care.
Yeah, it's a computer in
And
my house. Like so, some of them don't even have a password.
yeah, and it
Easy,
came
I'll
with a
just come switch it
60-day.
on.
Yeah, came with a 60-day eval of McAfee, and I
And now
never
it
bothered to
expired
buy
10
it.
years ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And it keeps popping up, but I just hit
Yeah, it's
ignore.
just like, yeah. And probably I'll call for support just to hide the message, not to take the action. But like, I don't want to see this anymore. Can you get rid of it?
Yeah, exactly. And so home users have been a challenge, and because they don't have the security that they need. So the education becomes even more important at that point.
Yeah. And we download lots of stuff. I mean, we're lucky now at this day and age that, for example, for our entertainment, we've got streaming networks like Netflix and the likes and Google? No, Amazon Prime.
Right.
But in the past, we used to actually download songs to just, take on the road.
Right.
And there were at some point peer-to-peer downloads, which were at some point made illegal. But in the
Mhm.
beginning, nobody knew any better. So you're
Right.
actually connecting to some home user halfway across the world that you don't even know, their name doesn't even appear, but you're actually downloading something from their computer. And that thing, you may think it's a song, but you're probably downloading some malware with it. Or, we were kind of lucky that we didn't have a major crisis back then. And
Yeah.
like the worst that could happen at the time was just a virus, a computer virus that either your antivirus would catch because it's in their list, or you go to a professional and they disinfect the machine for you. You pay like, I don't know, $100 or, 150 or whatever. But nowadays it's more complicated because the data, this is the thing. Your laptop, let's say you're traveling with your laptop and it's your personal laptop, but you also use it for work. If you forget it in the airport hall, the hardware itself costs like $1,000 or less or more, a little bit less, a little bit more, roughly like $1,000. But the data on that thing is priceless. It
Yeah.
depends on what data you have, what type of industry you're in, if you have intellectual property on it or not. It's like, so think always, how much is this data worth? And if it is worth a lot to you, but if you don't know what it's worth, you got to think, so what is it worth to a criminal then? Like, if you don't want to know what it's worth for you, like, okay, in the wrong hands, how much damage can be done if somebody gets this data? Not only yours and your clients.
Yeah, exactly. And so when we're dealing with laptops, we always insist that it's encrypted. And I don't really care. Like, so many people say, oh, I don't store anything on my laptop. I don't store anything on my laptop. And you're like, come on.
You do, but you don't know
it. You do, but you don't know it. And if you lose your laptop, now you're like, what did I store on that thing?
Yeah.
And it's not a conversation you want to have. It's so much easier just encrypt it out of the gate and make sure that it stays encrypted. And it's still not guaranteed that data isn't.
But it's better. Yeah, we're making it harder for a criminal to get access, because
exactly.
If it's gonna take them a long time, they'll just, well, we hope they'll just drop it and go try to find somebody else to attack.
Right.
Because
exactly.
they're not gonna waste 2 months trying to encrypt your hard disk only to find your beach photos or whatever.
Yeah, or your 1999 taxes or something like that.
Yeah. One of the worst actually breaches that happened was Life Labs. I don't know if you have them in Alberta, but it was one of BC's biggest, where you go to do your blood test to figure out whether you have diabetes or, your general health.
Right.
And it's a big, I think they had the data, I can't remember the number, but like millions of people. I think they don't only operate in BC. I'm not 100% sure, but let's say they're only in BC and they have 1 million British Columbians. Right. So it's you, like your name, your address, probably your social security number.
Or your healthcare number, yeah.
And definitely your healthcare number, right? And of course, your test results. So if this, I'm not 100% sure if they paid a ransom or what was the case exactly, but we learned about the data breach 3 months later after that company dealt with it already. Like, it wasn't made public at the time. And I think they had to answer to the government as to why they didn't tell us, why they didn't tell their customers that our data was breached until 3 months after, which is by then too late if somebody's acting badly on this obtained data. And what they did, they were forced to give us, I think, a credit monitoring service, so that if somebody applies for a loan or a credit card using your details, you'd know.
Right.
It doesn't fix the problem. It just tells you something wrong is happening there.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you're on your own, pal, trying to prove that it's not you, but at least you can go to the credit unions and say, hey, I have this and I've been notified by this company, and I think that's a result of their data breach. But it's a nightmare. I think their share went down, they lost a lot of their reputation, and now they're trying to figure out how to get better. And they asked everyone to change their passwords on their online, the system that used to book your tests. But it's a nightmare. It is.
It is.
If you
and
think
it's
something
not getting much better.
Yeah.
There's the dark web scanning tools that are available as well. The have I been
Oh yeah,
pawned
I've got
site.
my email. My email has been on the dark web for, I don't know, 7, 8 years. But
Yeah.
luckily, the tools that I use, they only come up with my email, which is okay. It's public anyway. Like, people get
Right.
the website or different places. You write it, I don't know, you go somewhere, you write it on a piece of paper. And yeah, like, what is it with paper? Like,
Yeah.
that the government, especially, they love paper. They don't do anything digital. Well, they don't do much. That some of the departments are better now. I think also post COVID, finally they realized that they have to do stuff online. Like, imagine if the CERB money they were paying were checks that
Mm.
would come through the post and not an electronic transfer to your bank account. Everybody would have been queuing outside some
Oh, for
federal
sure.
government building, getting
Well, if
COVID instead of getting the check.
this pandemic had hit 20 years ago, it would have been way more devastating than
I
it
know.
is.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We couldn't work from home. We
Right.
couldn't get any support without going somewhere and queuing. The government wouldn't have known what to do then. Yeah,
Yeah.
true. But till today, like, you go and apply, I don't know, you want to renew your passport, for example. Okay. So why do I have to fill in a big form that's a few pages long when you already have my data? Why can't I just go online, select, click, pay, bye bye? How
Yeah,
hard is it?
exactly.
You already have my data. Like, what do you need?
Yeah, exactly.
And then I keep thinking, okay, with 34 or 35 or 36 million Canadians, where are you going to store all these papers? Like, what happens to these passport renewal and new passport application forms? Where are they kept? They've got everything. They've got everything about you, right?
Yeah.
So do you, and what's we I honestly have no clue. What's the government policy? When do they destroy these documents? Is it after they issue the passport right away, or after a year, or after 10 years, or like, what happens? Because at some point you got to destroy it, or you run out of space.
Well, and then you have a privacy issue on the back end, right?
Yeah.
Like we used to say, I always have this expression, you can never have enough backups, right? And until I started working with medical doctors
Yeah.
and health clinics and that kind of thing. And it's like, okay, you can never have enough backups, but
You can't keep
after 7 years
Yeah.
or whatever the number is, we got to start purging those backups.
Yes.
And so now we've got too many backups. And so then there's data challenges on the back end of that as well, right?
Yeah.
And the government has it exponentially bigger challenge on that side.
Of course. Like, storing it, making sure it's safe, because a lot of the breaches are also physical breaches, not
Mm,
online breaches. So you could have a facility that's not connected to the internet, but if somebody enters who's not supposed to be there, they can get something that they're not supposed to get, or they're not supposed to see. So it's the
right.
level of clearance. It's like there's a lot. Physical security as well is very important. And I don't want to overcomplicate it, because we're usually talking here, especially in this podcast, for and advocating for and on behalf of small businesses. So yeah, they don't have this, but you got to think about it as a business as well. The data that you give and the data that you receive, where is it gonna? And this goes like, I talk a lot about website security, because many people kind of leave it alone because it's not a sexy subject, right? Like, I create a website, I pay the web designer a sum of money, whatever it is, $5,000, $3,000, whatever it is. I launched it, it looks beautiful, it works. I forget about it. I go home, that's it. I've got a working website, and I don't really think about anything. And if it's in WordPress, which is very versatile and very nice, and it's really one of the best frameworks that you can use for a website, but it does need to be updated. And the problem with this, that usually people think, oh, you know what, it updates itself, it auto updates. Yeah, the problem with that also that you have is not just the regular site, but you've got some plugins working, and these plugins are made by different people, right? And sometimes they don't play nicely together, so you end up with a conflict. That conflict can either be a security issue, like leave your website vulnerable to attack or malware, or simply just break the site itself. Like you access the site and it looks broken, like the look and feel isn't what it's supposed to be because some updates conflicted with each other. The other policy, so there, business owners do two things and both of them are wrong. If you leave everything on auto, it's better than not doing the updates at all. But
Right.
both of them are wrong. What you have to do is to get a professional to look into it, any professional. Like if you have an IT employee who's good with web stuff amongst your staff or someone you know, or your web designer or somebody, but you always have to have a professional looking into this as frequently as twice a month. And I'm not saying go and pay someone by the hour to look into it twice a month. Many people and many web design and development companies, they have a monthly maintenance plans. The problem is people don't understand what they're for. This is exactly what they're for, to have proactive security, to get your updates and upgrades on time, and most importantly, to have daily backups. So if a crisis hits, you can just revert to yesterday's backup and you're up and running in minutes. If your website is really, really big and it's an e-commerce one with tons of products, you'll be up and running in hours. But if you don't have any of this, your website will be down for weeks. And sometimes, and I'm not saying this to scare people, but sometimes it's not even possible to get the stuff back anymore. It will all depend on where it was hosted, where the attack happened, how it happened, and what kind of attack. And I know that people think, oh, but hang on a second. Most of the hosting services are run on Linux, and Linux is safer than Windows. Why are there attacks? Well, guess what? The majority of business owners have their WordPress username admin
Right.
and password 1234 or whatever, or your birthday, or
Yeah,
not
exactly.
complex enough, and it doesn't have a second authentication measure. So like if you leave it as admin, or okay, there's another case which is really nice. Security by obscurity. Many people just hide the login page. Think, oh, attackers will not find it. Really? If you can find it, they can. Like it's still there, it's just called something else. Like
Yeah, exactly.
where do you log in yourself? Like it is there. So like, yeah, let's just hide the login page and leave the admin username as admin and have a weak password, because I'm not bothered to remember a complex password. It's just too much for me.
That brings up another point. Around the dark web scans, when you do find that you've got an email address that's been violated and potentially a password that's been violated, one of the ones that I ran into the most, this was a few years back. People were getting emails saying, "I've got your access to your system. Your
Yeah.
email address is this, and your password is this." And I had clients phoning me saying, "How do they know my password?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "I think it's probably your LinkedIn password."
Yeah.
And they're like, "I don't even go on LinkedIn." And so then I would go on to LinkedIn and I would use their email
And
address and the
log in.
password that
Yeah.
they
And
just
it
gave me, and
works.
I'd log into LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And I'd say, "Look, I just got into your LinkedIn." And so the big lesson there is to not use the same password on every site,
Yes. Oh God,
and B,
sharing the
use a
same one.
password manager.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. And that some of them are free. Like you have no excuse.
yeah, yeah. Like password managers provide so much benefit. And so like some of the benefits are just a one place that you can
Yeah.
securely record all of your passwords.
I can't remember anything. Like in general, if I don't write things down, I forget.
Exactly.
It could be age. I could have some ADHD. I don't know, but
Yeah.
so there are two applications I can never live without. A note-taking application,
Mm,
whatever that is. It could be Google Notes or Microsoft Key. Sorry, why am I
OneNote.
mixing stuff now? Google Keep and Microsoft OneNote,
Right.
or Evernote. Like my favorite one is Evernote because it's easy. It works on the phone. It's just seamless. And a password manager. So
Yeah.
I used to use LastPass, and I used to recommend them. They're quite good and they're still good. My only issue with them was when I needed customer support, it wasn't up to the mark. So I
Mm,
switched and I use something else now. I use something called Dashlane. But there's
okay.
so many of them, and even some antivirus software now have a password manager embedded. And Google Chrome, the browser, does have a password manager. We used to tell people don't use it because if you're hacked or if your browser has a problem, um, the password used to be stored unencrypted, but I think Google now had fixed that, and now the the browser password manager is encrypted. But an application is really better than a browser password manager because you have it on multiple devices and it synchronizes. So if you use a password on your machine and then you go on the road and you want to access the same website using your phone, your password is there synchronized. You don't need the same browser, especially if you use Windows at home and an iPhone. You're gonna have Safari on your phone and Chrome or what
Exactly.
is it called?
The
Edge?
thing
Yeah,
the
Microsoft
thing
Edge.
we like about LastPass is that we're able to share passwords with our
Without giving the
clients.
password. Yeah,
Well, or we can give them the password as well. So we can have a particular vault that we share with
yeah.
our client. And so now our client has all the passwords stored securely and we can share it
You
without
know, it's
having
actually this is
to.
a great idea to share with web designers because I build a website for somebody and then maybe I'm also taking care of the hosting.
Mhm.
I create emails for that account on that server. And sometimes I create a new Google Mail for them so that we can have analytics for
Right.
them to see who's visiting the website, where they're coming from, and whatever. So you have multiple passwords. What happens after we launch? We send an email to the client with all the usernames and passwords. Because,
Right.
like, I, as the designer, my job is done here, and I'm handing over the key to you, Mr. Customer. And I mean, I don't like sending all this information in one email. If they get hacked, if their email gets hacked, someone can read this message, then they'll end up hacking everything else that we created for them.
And nobody changes their password after they get
And
the
no,
email.
no, because they want, if they forget, they want to go reopen that email, copy it from there. And yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not saying people should be security paranoid, but but
But they should be security paranoid.
we go for convenience and it's not always
Yeah.
the best thing.
Yeah,
So
for
use
sure.
a password manager. It's so easy. Maybe if I do create a new LastPass account and then share this group of password for this client, because this is the password for this specific client, that group of password for the next client, and so on. And then it will keep them in silos and at the same time secure. And then the only password I should share with them is how to log in to
Right.
their own LastPass. Or
Right.
maybe they can create their own account also on their own,
And you
and
can share
I
with
just
them.
share it with them without sharing
Yeah.
any passwords.
Yeah.
And everything is encrypted. I know this to the listeners, we're not trying to out tech you here. And basically, we're thinking out loud together to figure out the best way to share usernames and password, because the best way is definitely not by email. And for those of you who say, yeah, you know what, I'm going to share it using WhatsApp or SMS, same thing. If you lose
Mm.
your phone somewhere, somebody's going to get access to all of that.
What I usually do if I need to do it old school is I email you your username
Yeah, and then the password
and
comes by SMS alone.
I text you your password. I
So it's
say,
just a
and the,
string of gibberish text that no one knows what it's for. Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
I do the
Which
same, like split it.
which is a pain when you're trying to look that password up later. It's
But
like, okay, I
exactly,
got the
yeah.
email. I
Where
don't have
is
the
it?
text.
Yeah, I mean, a password manager, as I'm saying, like LastPass, there's a free version. You have no excuse. Okay, basically how it works, you create your own LastPass account. You create one master password to log into LastPass account. That password should be complex, but should be something that you can never forget. But it's complex enough. It's not like your birthday or your pet's name or whatever, right? Then
Right.
that's the only password you need to remember. Everything else, LastPass would remember for you. So, or if you use another like different, competing password manager.
Yeah. And the nice thing about those is that they provide autofill when you go to log into your WordPress
Yeah,
website. It'll automatically fill your username and password, so you don't have to remember it
yeah,
or look it up. The other thing it'll do is create passwords for you. So when you're creating a new account on a website, you don't even have to think about it. You just say
exactly. Yeah.
generate password, and it creates a password, and it can be anywhere from 8 characters all the way to like 75 characters if you
Yeah,
want
I
to
know
go
some
crazy.
clients would hate me because of the complex passwords I send them, and they said, "How do you
Mm,
remember that?" And I say, "Well, I don't. I've got
right.
a software that remembers it for me." That's exactly the idea. It's hard to
Yeah.
crack because it's like a string of, you know, capital small and characters and whatever. And
Yeah.
it's not like, because some people think, okay, I'm just gonna go with a sentence like, I don't know, the lazy folks jumped over the lazy sheep or whatever it is.
Right. Yeah. The quick brown fox jumped over
Yeah,
the lazy dog.
exactly.
That's
Thank
what it
you.
is. Yeah.
You have a better memory than I do.
I've typed that so many times.
I only see this when I'm doing I don't know, something in the screen, in the display settings in my computer. I can't even remember what it's called.
Yeah,
Like clear.
fonts, I
I
think.
think it's called clear type. Yeah, clear type.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Or true type or something like
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah. The
Yeah.
the brown folks jumped over the lazy, whatever. Yeah, no, in web design we have lorem ipsum doloris, which is the Latin
Mm,
text that you
right.
get when you're designing a website and the client didn't give you enough content yet. And
I've
many
seen sites that
clients,
still have that
yeah.
on it.
Me too. Yeah, but they're not mine. But like sometimes I see this.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't even bother changing the text. You use this as a placeholder, so you know every element of the design comes in the right space because you know how much text you have and how big is the image. And since you don't have the right text, you just fill it with any dummy
Yeah.
Latin.
It's classic. Yeah.
And some people take the website, pay for it, and they were meant to change it the next day, but they've never done it.
Don't look at my site.
Yeah, it's funny. Sometimes it's at the bottom of the page, like they've done the work and the site looks brilliant until you scroll down and you find like one paragraph there or the address. When the address says 123 any street.
Yeah. I've had that with MailChimp. You compose a MailChimp
Yeah.
email and you copy it from a previous campaign. And there's all of those
Oh my
sections.
God. Yeah, yeah. It comes
And
with the
I've
hidden fields.
accidentally left a link on one of the sections that goes to an old campaign. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah.
We've all been there. So yeah, so to sum it up, like guys, okay, we're not scaring anyone here. We're saying that you need to seriously think about your machine security, your website security, especially if your computer is like, if you're working from home right now and your computer wasn't given to you by your company, if you work for a company,
Right.
and if you have a website or you do anything online, anything, as simple as somebody filling a form on your website to contact you, you've got their name and email, so this data should be protected somehow. And by the way, this is not something that takes days and years or even hours. Like it's just, if you have somebody proactively looking at your overall security, they'll get this done for you. And most of these services are on a kind of a monthly retainer that's not expensive, and there's so much value that you get out of it. More importantly, you avert a big crisis. And even if it hits, God forbids, like usually it wouldn't if you're doing all your proactive stuff, But even if it does, let's say your website has a problem from the hosting company, like you've done all your due diligence and you're protected very well, but your hosting company has a problem, right? From your backups, we can restore everything back again to working condition on a new web hosting. So, it's not a big deal. And the automated thing, that's the thing, because the antivirus people or the antivirus software companies would like to convince you that it's a set it and forget it. And in all honesty, yeah, some of it is. If you're attacked by the old style viruses that already exist in their database, fine,
Yeah,
they'll catch
exactly.
it. But what they don't tell you is that not everything is in the database, as we established today. And there's something, and again, I'm going to use a technical term because that's the name, and it's a complicated name. I can't pronounce it right. Heuristic, like there's a heuristic type
Yeah.
of malware and viruses, which simply means they change their signature. So the as we're talking that bad stuff like viruses and malware have a distinct signature, and every time they infect a machine, they behave in a certain way. The heuristic ones, they don't have any specific distinct signature. They change, and well, pretty much like COVID-19. Uh, you got a new
Variants.
variant. Yeah. Oh God, like I didn't know that I'll be saying this about human viruses as well as computer viruses in the same sentence. So yeah, with these heuristic stuff and variants, you do need, again, proactive security, not the reactive one, the set it and forget it one. So you need a specific framework. You need somebody, a human being, not just software. Software is a great tool, but sometimes it doesn't work without a human behind it. That my experience tells me that.
Exactly. And you always get into trouble when there's nobody paying any attention.
An attack that can happen somewhere, and I'm saying that after the crisis, they discovered that they've relied pretty much on AI alone and machines alone and a few human beings, but not enough, to the point
Right.
that they couldn't prevent it. So take this on a smaller scale, which is an attack on a website, on a business website. And, could be a restaurant, could be a painting company or a flooring company or a lawyer or, a yoga teacher or something like that. And imagine people come to your website every day to check your classes or to check, your posts, sometimes to interact with your posts, to learn something, to get some free training, download a file, whatever. Like, people like to come, like if you have customers who are loyal customers, they always check your website. You go do networking somewhere, the first thing anyone who's interested to communicate with you or connect with you is going to do is to go and check your website out, right?
Exactly.
So imagine if this is off for a couple of weeks or a couple of days or even a couple of hours, or if it's too slow because it's under attack and you're
Or if
hosting.
it's been flagged as malicious.
Yeah. Or God forbids if it's being completely defaced and they go and find some, I don't know, forbidden, illegal stuff in there. And you could get a call from a security agency in your country just because you got hacked and something appeared there that is not. I'm like, yeah, I don't want to say, keep repeating the same thing. I'm from the Middle East originally, and that scares some people, not about me, but about the word Middle East. But yeah, imagine if somebody from, I don't know, ISIS would go and post propaganda on your website. How would that make you feel to the local authorities?
Or
and
to your
again,
clients.
we're discussing security, so I know that this specific episode could land us in hot water, but like all the AI would now who are that are scanning specific words, and oh my
That's
God,
right.
the word ISIS appeared, the word FBI appeared. Hey, my American friends, I don't mean any harm. We're just telling people to be vigilant and actually be on the right side, protecting their businesses, protecting their reputation. And that's, I didn't want to initially give such a dark and bad examples, but when it happens, the numerous times I wouldn't call them clients, prospect clients, because we didn't end up working together because there was not much that I could have done for them.
Right.
The amount of times, I don't know, I think like in 2020, probably 11 or 12 calls asking me if I could help with a website that has been completely hacked or has been infected with malware and they have no backup. Okay. There's nothing, I mean, yeah, there is something to be done, but the cost and the effort of getting it done will just be too much for a small business to bear. Like literally, if you have no backup and you've been compromised that badly, it could take days to try and because first you have to get the data back, which is all the data, including the infection. Then you have to actually clean up the infection and bring back the good data only. And this could take weeks. So if you think of it, the cost involved would be just too high for a small business to bear.
Yeah, it's almost like starting over again.
Yeah, it will be easier just to go and build a new website, in all honesty. Just pay somebody, like, how much are you going to spend? $3,000 is better than actually spending, I don't know, 3-4 times, even 5 times that amount and waiting for 5-6 weeks or maybe sometimes longer for this to be done. So
right.
Backups are very important, guys. And when you do have a backup, because I'm going to say something really funny, actually try it. Try to restore from a backup. Don't have a backup, throw it aside for the rainy day. And then when the rainy day comes, it doesn't work because you haven't tested it. So I'm not saying test every single backup, but if you put in a backup system into place, the first time you use it, test it. Chances are it will continue to work as intended after that, but test it once. So, what I do, I'm going to talk about a website because that's what I do. You create a clone of your website, put it on a staging server, not the original one. Use your backup. So damage this website somehow. Go and delete the files from your WordPress folder or tamper with your database or something. And then go and restore from the backup. If it works and everything is back the way it should, that backup solution you have is good and it's working. And that's what we do when we do our maintenance plans. Basically, we take your daily backups and then we test the first time. We don't test it every day, of course, or we don't test every single backup. That would be too much work to do.
Yeah,
but
that's a good idea.
I assume you do the same thing with backups. Like you look at computer backups are a little bit easier because the operating system is the same. Like when I back up a website, I'm using Windows. The website is on Linux. So I can't just look at the file structure. I have to restore it to a website in order to see that everything works. But on my PC, when I have my own backup on a hard drive, I can simply just go to the hard drive and open and see that all the files they open and they work. You encrypt it, and then when you need it, you decrypt it, and then you look there and you look at the stuff, and if everything is working, you're able to open the documents, you're able to save them. Then your backup is a good one.
Yeah, depending on the complexity of your backups.
Yeah. Sometimes you actually have to really test it. Like
there's virtualization backups and cloud backups and you name it.
You can. That's a great idea, Dan, as well. Like you could put it on a virtual machine.
Yeah.
So it's a bit. So for the users at home, don't attempt that on your own.
That's right. That's when you get the professionals involved.
I mean, okay, it's not going to damage anything if you want to get into virtualization, but it's going to consume a lot of your time that you should be spending with your clients instead. Unless, you're just doing it to learn and you want to get into IT, then by all means, go and explore something is wrong with my tongue today. Virtualization.
That's right.
Virtualization. because it's actually if you like tinkering around with stuff, it's actually very nice. The concept
Yeah.
and how much you can get done with this, and how many, you could practically test anything on anything. You could have a Mac operating system running on a Windows computer or whatever. I
Or
used to do
vice
that.
versa.
Yeah, back
Yeah.
in the day, like, I don't know, when I was way younger. No, I don't have the patience now, Dan.
That's right.
I do it if I have to because I want to test something, but like we used to, I don't know, we used to run even Xbox software on a Windows computer before Microsoft made them compatible,
Right.
just for the heck of it. I don't know why. Presumably at the time, computers were more powerful than consoles, gaming consoles. But now, since the gaming console is dedicated to only do one job, it's way better than a computer
Right.
in running your games, unless you have a gaming rig.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I think I've digressed a lot, but we've covered it. Like, we've covered the security part. And I just want to say to all the listeners, if you have any issues, you think you have issues, you need more information, you want to discuss things further, I'm going to post Dan's links below this episode. If you want to have the same conversation about websites, you can have a conversation with me. You know where to find me. Everything is posted below. And Dan, do you have like any like a consultation call or a free
Yeah, a
discovery
free 30
call or
minute.
anything? Yeah.
Yeah, a free 30-minute consult. You can access my calendar off our website. So if you want to book
Perfect.
something through my calendar, it's available there.
Yeah, I like that, because I mean, in most cases, maybe you just have a question. Maybe someone just has a question. They're not sure about something, or they want to start, they don't know where to start, or they're afraid. Some people think when we talk IT services that it's going to cost an arm and a leg. It doesn't.
Yeah.
It costs an arm and a leg to fix it when the crisis happens. But if there's no crisis, the regular service is something that's affordable, and it will be tailored to your specific needs. How many machines you have, what are you trying to protect? Do you have consumer data or not?
I'm always happy to help. I
Yeah,
say it's always good to have an IT guy in your back pocket. So
exactly. It's
it's
always have to have an IT guy and a JITSIC. Is it JITSIC?
JC.
JITC, just another IT company. Yeah, JITC. I hope we didn't scare people, and I hope the CIA is not going to be knocking on the door tomorrow after we publish the episode. Hey guys, we love you, especially the movies that you make about yourself. Thank you very much, Dan, for being my guest today.
Thank you, Amr. It was great to be on.
And I hope it's
Appreciate it.
not going to be the last time we speak. I think, let's see, like, what's the feedback? We maybe take like, do like some mini series about one issue, because
Yeah.
I think, talk about security in the digital age is not a one-time thing.
No, like you could have an entire episode just on password managers.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to post the links as well to LastPass and Dashlanes and,
Yeah.
the tools that I've used before that I know are reliable and good.
Yeah.
And maybe the
Good
next
idea.
episode will be about VPNs.
There you go.
Thanks a lot, Dan. Have a great day.
Thank you. Same to you.